Good afternoon, everyone. And probably for my client who's in Connecticut, it's very cold out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's morning for her. And as you know, my name is Zenzi Sewa, and welcome to Spiritual Infinity. And my guest today is Barb Nangle, and she's here to share her spiritual journey from the beginning, what she went through, how she connected, what she went through in her life, how she helped use that to help her through her difficulties. Because we're all gone through difficulties. We're all having our own path, and it is the time for an awakening. And we need that support, that understanding that we're never alone, no matter what it is. And we just have to find that connection, be strong, and in that, we generally can help others without realizing it. But without much ado, let me say welcome to Barb Nangle in Connecticut.
Thank you so much, Zenzi. I'm really excited to be here. And I've been on many podcasts, but I don't think I've ever shared my spiritual journey from beginning to end. So I'm really excited to be able to share my story.
Good. So we're in for a good treat then.
Yeah. So I am 62. I was born in 1963, and my mom converted to Catholicism to marry my dad. And my family went to Catholic church, and we stopped going when I was 6, before I ever got First Communion or anything. And we never really talked about religion or spirituality. Nobody talked about spirituality when I was growing up. That just wasn't a thing. But we never really talked about God or religion after that, except for the fact that my older brother, who's a year and a half older than me, was a staunch atheist. He was just like, there is no God. And he was like this force. That was the main impact. And I was always like, I don't know what's going on, but and the little bits and pieces that I picked up from the culture didn't resonate with me. But I was like, no, God, that doesn't seem right. There's something going on here. And so I would say that I grew up agnostic. And I just remember this when you started talking. When I was a teenager, there was some game that I was playing with my friends. It was a board game, and it was about questions. And the question was, what's the difference between religion and spirituality? And I got that question. And I said, and I can't believe I remember this. I said, religion is about rules and is made up by people, and spirituality is about a connection to the universe. And I think today I probably agree with that. So I went along in my life as an agnostic. And then when I was in my mid-30s, my younger brother he had mental health and substance use problems, and he had been going to a 12-step recovery program. And somebody told him about this book called We're All Doing Time by Bo Lozoff. And he had said to me that he wanted a copy of that book. So I sent away for it. And because I did that, I got on the mailing list of this organization that was run by Bo Lozoff. It's called the Human Kindness Foundation. And they work with people who are incarcerated. And one of the things they did was called the Prison Ashram Project, which was to teach people in prison, you have something that most people in the outside world want, which is time. And you can use that time, and you can use your prison cell as an ashram and learn to meditate and be connected. And I got this newsletter, and the very first newsletter was a story by Bo Lozoff that I'm not going to go into the details now. And if you want, I can send you the PDF of it. But it was the first glimpse of anything spiritual that I read that I was like wham, like right in my heart. I didn't know what it meant or anything. And then a few years after that, when I was 37, through a series of serendipitous events, which I would now call divine intervention, I came to read the book Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh.
Yeah, I read that.
I bought it on a Friday. I read it over the weekend. And by Monday morning, I believed in my own conception of God. Because up to that time, I had only been shown the Christian idea of God. And what I had seen in my personal life was the people that I saw that I knew were Christian were kind of mean and hypocritical. And I was like, like the little bits and pieces I've picked up about Christ, like, no. So I developed my own conception of God. And for me, it was mainly expressed through gratitude. And actually a couple years after that, in the year 2000, I started keeping a gratitude journal, and I still do to this day. So for over 25 years, I've been keeping a gratitude journal. And so the way that I think about it is that my spirituality was defined by the understanding that I am part of something greater than myself, that I can tap into, that I'm not alone, and and my belief is that the universe is inherently good. And then about 15 years after that, when I was 52, I hit what I call a codependent bottom, and I landed in 12-step recovery, which, if people have ever heard of 12-step recovery, they've probably heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's not my program, but that was the first 12-step recovery program. And what they may not know is that these are spiritual programs. Okay. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to believe in God. It means you have to believe in some kind of a higher power. I happen to choose to call my higher power God. But actually, as I say that, I want to backtrack for just a moment. When I first read Conversations with God, the idea of God having gender just made no sense to me. I'm like, clouds don't have gender, mountains don't have gender. Why would God have gender? So if I ever had occasion to write the word God, I would write Godde, because it was like halfway between God and goddess. Mm-hmm. I have since let go of that, and I often use he. I don't really mean it. I just do it because it's expeditious. But within about a month of having read Conversations with God, and I'm not sure which happened first, I was at work, and I remember saying to a colleague, I feel the need to do something consistent and positive like church, but I can't deal with the whole Jesus, God, Bible thing. And he said, you know what, Barb, you are Unitarian Universalist. You just don't know it. And so he went into his office, printed out the principles and purposes of Unitarian Universalism, which is a religion in the United States that's combined from long-standing Unitarians and Universalists came together and have morphed into an extremely liberal religion that actually accepts people of all religious faiths, including agnostics and atheists. You don't just have to be, in fact, very few of them are Christian. And I started going and started being connected to other people and started learning, I learned about the history and theology of Unitarianism and Universalism because I went to this, they called it Northeast Leadership School. It was really more of a retreat for lay leaders of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. And it really shaped me, and it really drove home the social justice oriented nature of many religions, and especially Jesus and Christianity. But I still was like, with the Christianity. What's really funny now, I'm going to jump ahead for just a second, Senzi, is I go to a Christian church now. And I'm a huge fan of the TV series The Chosen. I'm not sure if you watch it. Oh my God, I love that show. And I feel like it has really, well, of course, humanized Christ and all of the disciples, but it's made Christianity feel more reachable or tangible or real.
More human, down to earth.
Yeah, human. Yes, humanized it. And I still, I would say I loosely identify as Christian, and I say that regularly. And somebody said to me not long ago, what do you mean by that? And I was like, that's a good question. What do I mean? And I said, number one, I mean, I don't identify with Christianity to the exclusion of anything else. And number two, there are a lot of hateful people that identify as Christian, and I don't want to be lumped in with those people. To me, Jesus's message was love people, especially people on the margins of society. That's who he hung out with. Yes. That is who he ministered to. Yes. That is who he had as his disciples.
Yes.
And so he was like, basically, do what I do. Yes. Right. And so I really have internalized that. So when I got into 12-step recovery and didn't really initially understand that it was a spiritual program, I came to have what I would now call a relationship with my higher power. Whereas before, it didn't feel like there was a back and forth
Yeah,
kind of thing. It didn't feel like
yeah.
a relationship. And I also learned to do what I call use God. And when I say use God, I mean things like I turn my will and my life over to God. I'm like, you're in charge. I'm going to let you take the reins.
I,
Um,
I'm
I
with
mean,
you. I
I
can.
mean, when I'm having difficulty, especially with difficult thoughts and difficult feelings, handing them over. And actually, in the beginning, Zenzi, I didn't hand things over. I shoved them over. I was like, no, seriously, God, like you have to take this. And I also ask for guidance all the time. And usually, I mean, I can't think of a time when I haven't gotten it. And for me, one question that happens a lot for people in recovery, because many people come to 12-step recovery with religious trauma. And so the idea of going to God is just really, really difficult for them. And like, how do I know the difference between my own thoughts and God?
Yeah,
And I'm like, okay, how do I know? And I think for me, if it's coming from God, it's slow, it's quiet, it's not repeated. It's not like, it's not like this fast thing. It's not like over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's my thoughts that do that
mhm,
kind of thing. So for regularly, I will think, okay, I'm not sure which thing to do. And I will get a flash of an image, like a 0.5 second flash of an image. And to me, that's God talking to me. Or I will feel pulled in a certain direction. Like, let's say, I'm like, do I go to the kitchen or do I go to the, that's not a question I would ask God, but maybe there's
yeah.
something that I want to do that's in the kitchen and the living room.
I
And
hear
I
you.
will feel a pull in that direction. Like
I
to
hear you.
me, that's my guidance. And when I first started handing things over to God, the first time I remember like handing something over and it actually being taken from me, Zenzi, it was for like maybe 3 seconds. But it happened and I was like, oh my God, what was that? Like, wait, it's possible. And so what that meant for me is that prior to that moment of experiencing the relief of handing something over and having it taken, I kind of felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. I didn't even realize it at the time. I did an enormous amount of worrying, an enormous amount of ruminating, an enormous amount of catastrophizing about the future. But I had always thought of myself as this like super positive, glass half full, optimistic, motivational, inspiring person. And I am, and I was, and I had all this negativity going on.
Yeah,
And I was like, whoa, that's a thing that I can hand stuff over. Like, and I didn't realize that when I was doing all this ruminating and catastrophizing, I was activating my nervous system.
yeah.
And I now know, because you mentioned trauma before we got on the call, like one thing you don't know about me is that my main 12-step recovery program is called Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And the way I describe that program is that it's a trauma recovery program where you reparent yourself and you use the 12 steps to recover. So I've been in this trauma recovery program for over 10 years, did not know that I qualified for the program, didn't understand that I had childhood trauma. I didn't understand about intergenerational family dysfunction. And so for me, learning to catastrophize and to ruminate and activate my nervous system is essentially a trauma response because I'm trying to prevent future harm.
Yeah.
I'm trying to replay events in the past to think, how could I have done it differently? Almost as if I could change the past, which obviously we cannot.
Can I ask you a question here? Because you just mentioned that you're in this program, but you didn't realize the trauma that you had as a young child that you had to work through. Can you just mention briefly what
So,
as
Zenzi, you're coming through very staticky to me, and I'm having a very hard time understanding what you're saying.
sorry, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but there's an enormous amount of
Static?
static with it. Okay. Yeah, we're on the speakers from the MacBook Pro. I've never had this problem before. Maybe try saying something again. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me clearly now?
I can hear you now. It's echoing and it's
Oh, I'm sorry. Because I can hear you very clearly at my end.
Would it be, maybe should I try to sign off and come back on to see if that helps?
Okay, I'll keep it running.
Okay.
So
Okay.
let's see what
Oh,
happens.
wait. It fixed. Wait.
It's fixed.
It's fixed. Okay. Thank you, God. Divine intervention. Oh my goodness.
Because we are
God's
speaking.
Like, we got to keep this conversation going.
Yes, keep it going.
Yes. Okay.
You mentioned about childhood trauma, but when you spoke in the past, you didn't say much about it. Can you just briefly tell us what? Because people are going through this, and they need to know.
Yeah. So when I first got into it, so ACA is the abbreviation for Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. And when I first got in, I heard of people talking about trauma. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. Now, I knew when I was 17 and again when I was 18, my dad tried to strangle me. And I knew that that was traumatic, but I didn't understand that it resulted in trauma. And I think most people, when they think of trauma, they think of a blunt event like that. Like you got attacked, you were in a hurricane, you know, you were in a war zone, you got, you know, beaten up or something like that. Right. And that's what I've learned people call big T trauma. So that's like a blunt thing that is everybody's pretty clear that was traumatic. What I experienced, which I now know, is what often is called little T trauma. So sometimes it's called relational trauma. So it's trauma that results in the context of a relationship, typically because of emotional invalidation. The way that we mostly talk about it in ACA is it's about abandonment. And it could very well mean physical abandonment, like your parent died or they left and never came back, or you were adopted or something like that. But for that is true for some people. But for all of us, even whether that's true or not, it has to do with emotional abandonment. And this is not to blame our caregivers. This is people not being able to give what they don't have. So they were not emotionally cared for, emotionally validated, like nurtured and affirmed and protected emotionally the way that they needed to be and deserved to be, and therefore they didn't have it to give to us. So I call it sort of like the drip, drip, drip of emotional invalidation. So in my feelings, we often pretended things were not happening, that everybody knew were happening. We swept things under the rug. So we would, you know, like have like some big, like nasty event. You know, like I happen to know that my father was a womanizer. I don't even know I don't know. Does that mean he had flings, he had affairs, he had a mistress? I don't know, but I was 10 when I figured it out. And if I knew, my mom knew. So we didn't talk about that. My mom secretly smoked cigarettes. And that may sound really mundane, but secrets are not good. And we basically colluded with our mom against our dad about her smoking. And that is crazy making for children to have these things going on that we're not talking about. Like, I'm a kid, I don't even understand how the world works. And then I'm supposed to pick up things without people telling me and all this sort of thing. And my parents, I don't remember them having big, huge fights. I remember them arguing. And like what I recall was the main arguments were my dad thought my mom was not a good enough housekeeper. And they disagreed about child rearing. So, you know, there was just a lot of conflict. I also remember, like, we're not talking about feelings. For me, I think one of the worst things that my father ever said to me, which he said many times, was, "Do you want me to give you a reason to cry?" And when you're little, you're like, what? Like, I am crying. Why are you, who is my authority figure, telling me I don't have a reason to cry? And it's crazy making for children. And so I got the message that my feelings were not okay, that we weren't talking about any of that kind of stuff. And feelings are sort of the language of humans. And so that is traumatizing. So my first 6 months in the ACA program, I remember thinking I objectively did not have it as bad as many of the people in the room. I didn't get, beat up. I didn't get my bones broken. I didn't get burned. I didn't get told I was a piece of crap. But I knew that I had the traits of an adult child. So when you get into like in every meeting, they will read this list of 14 traits of an adult child. So new people coming in will see, like, do I feel like I belong here? And that list is affectionately called the laundry list. And I knew that I had a bunch of the traits, but I didn't know how I got them and I didn't know how I got there. But about 6 months into the program, I came to understand that trauma can result from the absence of good things happening. And I was like, oh, that's me. And then I later heard trauma can result from unmet needs. And actually, this just came to me just this second when I said that. One of our needs as a human is to connect to something greater than ourselves. And I didn't have that as a child. My family literally stopped talking about God, religion, or anything, with the exception of this atheist voice of my brother.
Yes.
And so, one of my unmet needs was a connection to something greater than myself. One of my unmet needs was being able to feel and express and process the natural feelings that human beings feel, especially children. One of my unmet needs was feeling emotionally safe with my parents and feeling like I perceive the truth and can name the truth. Because I think for me, one of the worst effects of growing up with intergenerational family dysfunction is questioning my own perception. If you can't rely on your own senses to tell you the truth about the world, what can you rely on? And so trauma, and another thing that I think that really helped me a lot is when I first got into recovery, I went to something called yoga for 12-step recovery. I did that for 2.5 years. And one of the lines they say in that program, which really struck me, was the issues are in our tissues. So trauma lives in the body. So there's a famous book, Bessel van der Kolk, he wrote it, and it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's essentially saying the same thing. Your body remembers on a cellular level. Your body has memory.
Yes.
And so the yoga for 12-step recovery and a number of other things I have done have helped to release the trauma from my body. So this is why so many people that are in trauma recovery programs do somatic type therapies. So that means they do something related to the body. It doesn't necessarily mean they're doing yoga, but they are connecting with their body. They're doing breathing exercises. They are doing things like emotional freedom technique, which is tapping. They might be doing trauma release exercises, meditation, basically things that calm the nervous system and things that release the trauma from the body. And this is all of this together is part of my spirituality. So my spiritual practices that I engage in today are, I pray many times a day. So I have certain prayers. One of them is a Buddhist prayer that I've been saying for like 20 years. And then 3 of them are prayers I got from 12-step recovery. Then I have my own, I guess I would call it a grace that I made up that I say every time I eat. And then, of course, I pray multiple other times a day. And I try to connect with with my higher power on a regular basis, especially if I start to feel activated or my heart rate is increasing or my chest feels pressure on it or I have trouble catching my breath and that sort of thing. I also meditate most of the time twice a day. What I happen to be doing right now is called heart-brain coherence meditation. I've been doing that for actually about 2 years now. And I really, it feels so good in my body. I go to church just about every single week. And for me, it's a somewhat about community. It's definitely about connecting. It's like connecting the bridge between the spiritual world and the human world for me.
Yeah.
That's really what church is about.
Yeah.
And understanding, because I do go to a Christian church, how this body of people that I go to church with translates what's in the Bible to today, so that they understand, like, this mission we're on to
Yeah.
love the world is
Yeah.
a 2,000-year-old mission. We're
Yes.
tied, so we're not just tied to something greater than ourselves in terms of like God and spirituality and higher power, but we're tied to this 2,000-year tradition, and it matters.
Yes. I so like what you've just said. It's a 2,000-year tradition. It's a 2,000-year journey, because this is what Christ came to remind us. Because before he came, we should have known this, but we went right. So he came in to shake us and to remind us what we're supposed to do, who we are, because we are of, because he says the kingdom of God, everything is within you.
Yes.
He was telling us everything is in you to remember. And he was saying, and he wasn't a little softy, he was a revolutionary.
Yes.
He was telling you how to live.
Yeah. He knocked over the tables in the temple. Like, right?
You know, he went against his norm.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Did you see that scene in The Chosen?
No, but I was told about it, and I started to watch it, and I've forgotten it, but I'm going to go back to it. But I know in the Bible, when he went, he knocked over the chain, because he said, it's like a marketplace. You're not doing what my father said.
Yeah.
So he came to remind us. And it wasn't, and as much as they said, you know, he never stopped being a Jew. No, he never stopped being a Jew. But he had to tell the Jews about themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Because they weren't doing the things the father said. But he was telling us the world. You know, so when you listen, so you said it so beautifully. It is a 2,000-year journey. That we're all connected. It doesn't matter, as long as you keep that connection and to love and to care for one another. Sorry, Barbara, I'll continue.
No, please. I actually, I feel like I kind of wrapped up that, you know, that part. I think
beautifully.
You know, and what's interesting is that my brother that I talked about, that was an atheist. So we both grew up in dysfunction, and so for the last number of years, he's been in a very deep, dark depression, isolating himself, and just really almost like subtracting himself from society. And he's had a huge awakening as a result of a friend stopping by and kind of being like, "What are you doing?" And he and I have reconnected and reconciled. And he sold our family home that he was living in. And until he finds a new place, he's going back and forth between living with me and living in a hotel it's about an hour away is where my hometown is, so that he can do his business up there, you know, his doctors and all that kind of stuff. And we are really enjoying our time together. And so he has his own belief. He's no longer an atheist. He has his own belief. He like, for him, Buddhist like philosophy resonates the most with him. But he's 64. When he was 24, he had a drunk driving accident, which landed him in a rehabilitation center, and he became sober. He went to AA for a couple years and then stopped going. But when that accident happened, he had, what does he call it? A life review.
Yeah.
And I knew that he had that, and he talked about it a couple of times when we were young. But since I have been back connected with him, so he's been staying with me on and off since the fall. I don't know when. And I would say he comes here for 3 to 5 days and then leaves for 3 to 5 days and comes here. So he's here very regularly. And I feel pretty safe in saying that I think every time he's been here, he talks about this life review. And he is not afraid to die. So his life review was not just this life, it was past lifetimes. things that he did in his past lifetimes that it scared the crap out of him and really was devastating to him. But he got the message, you're not done. And he literally stopped drinking and stopped drugging after that. Like he literally, it just, because he was like, this isn't working. Like it's not working. And like, you have more of a mission. And it's pretty clear. He hasn't come right out and said this to me, but it's pretty clear that this last, whatever, 10, 15 years that he's been kind of going downhill, he's had another wake-up call. Okay. That he got off the track of his mission. And so the hotel that he stays in, Zenzi, is a relatively cheap one where some people actually live there, and many of them have really difficult lives. And so without getting into the mode of trying to rescue, fix, and save them, he is having these deep and meaningful conversations with people who are down and out. And he's, reaching out to people, and he's feeling like he really matters. And I think that, when people get super depressed and they isolate themselves and they're really lonely, I heard something recently that loneliness is not about other people. It's about a lack of purpose.
Yes.
Feeling like you don't matter.
Yes.
And my brother feels like he has a purpose now. And he's also come back into my life at a time where he's been really helpful to me. And I will also say we have made amends to each other. We have apologized to each other. We've come clean about the fact that we've basically been lying our ways through life. Even though I always thought I was an honest person before I got in recovery. I lied about cigarettes. I lied about drugs. I lied about alcohol. I lied about relationships. But mostly I lied in the people-pleasing department. So I basically wanted people's approval. I didn't even realize that was going on. I wanted people to think that I was a good, kind, helpful person. I did not want them to think that I was a bad person. And, so we've been
the cloud. A lot of us have been doing.
Yeah. So you're getting staticky again. I'm not sure what that is, but maybe I'll threaten to hang up again and God will intervene and fix the staticky thing again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now it's fine.
Yeah.
It worked.
What I'm hearing from this is that he has come to help you, but you're also helping him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So wonderful.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And the work he's doing.
Yeah. And there's a lot of repair work going on between the two of us. So when the first day that we saw each other in person, which had been at least 5.5 years since we'd seen each other, and we hadn't spoken on the phone for, I'm not sure, 2 to 3 years, but even when we spoke on the phone, it was a couple of times. And before that, it was years. Mm-hmm. And we had, I would call it a thread of a relationship via text. And it was not good. Like every time he texted me, I was like, oh, and the first day we talked was a Monday. And I'll tell you something, Zenzi, as soon as I got on the call with him, all of my judgment about him just went away, and it's been gone since then. It was literally like the scales falling off of your eyes kind of thing. And then I saw him that Saturday, and when I was hugging him and crying, I said to him, I honestly never believed I believed this would never happen. And when we sat down to talk, I said, I have had to be very boundaried with you for my own stability and mental health. Yeah. And I'm sorry if it's impacted you negatively, but that's what I needed to do to take care of myself, because I've spent my life rescuing, fixing, and saving other people, and I'm not doing it anymore. And he said, what are you apologizing for? You have nothing to apologize. I practically tortured you as a child. And I was like, what? Like that he admitted it?
Confession.
Well, what's really interesting, Zenzi, is so this was in 2025. Earlier that year, I've been doing something called IFS, Internal Family Systems Therapy. And in that therapy, it came up, I had the realization that my brother bullied me as a child. I'm 62. I had never had that in my consciousness before. And I think that, so my brother was bullied his entire childhood, and he was bullied so badly in third grade and fourth grade and eighth grade that the schools and my parents got involved. And back then, bullying was not on the national agenda. It wasn't something people talked about. Like, that's how bad it was. And so I think as a child, I kind of was like, oh, he was bullied, so I can't be, or something like that. So I think that's partly why I never identified it. But then a few weeks later in therapy, it came up. It wasn't just bullying, it was abuse. Like, one of the things I remember as a teenager saying to people, I practically have calluses on my back from my brother punching me. Oh. And then he always had a book in hand. And so he would take this part of the spine and whack me on the head with it. Like, that's abuse.
It is.
Right? So for in the same calendar year, for me to acknowledge my brother bullied me and to acknowledge that he abused me, and then for him to say, I practically tortured you, it was like, oh my, like, I'm like, my internal being is being rearranged. So a couple weeks after he said that to me, we sat down and had a longer conversation, and I told him all of this. I told him how I had this realization that he bullied me, and I had this realization that he abused me. And that those two realizations alone changed me. It changed my whole understanding of things, of myself, of him, of our relationship. And then within the same calendar year, for him to admit that it was true, like, and apologize, by the way, like, let me not forget that part. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. He said, I did the very thing that was done to me. And I said, Steve, you're not alone. That's why it's called intergenerational family dysfunction. Yes. And he goes, that doesn't make it okay. I'm like, oh no, I was not saying that it was okay.
Okay. But you could understand it.
It's understandable. And you are not the first person who was bullied to bully people. It's kind of how it works.
Yes.
You know, and it's not okay.
Yeah, it's not okay.
You
we
know,
take it as being normal, and that's
right.
You know, this is what's done, and so it was done to me, so I do it to you because that's what's done. But
no, because that's what I know.
Yeah,
you know, right.
Oh my gosh, this is wonderful.
Yeah, and I have no doubt that, like, God has a lot to do with this. So one of the things that we talk about in the ACA recovery program is that when we heal this intergenerational family dysfunction, it reverberates into the past.
Yes.
It sends healing into generations. And therefore, it also sends healing into the current generation and, of course, into future generations. So I have no doubt that this work that I have been doing has somehow gone into the relational field and made this repair work between my brother and I possible. I'm not trying to say he has been doing his own work. Like, he is a changed man. For him to own stuff, for him to apologize, for him to say, oh my God, I had no idea the impact of my behavior. My former brother was incapable of that. I wasn't capable of saying to him, this is what I experienced. I really don't say this is what you did to me. I say, this was my experience. I would never have shared that with him in the past. But now I don't abandon myself anymore. I show up for myself. I follow through for myself. I have my own back. I tell the truth, not to shame and blame people, but it's not serving anybody for me to not tell the truth.
Thank you. And this is how we're supposed to live. And it's not about shaming and blaming. It is about us being honest. If we want something, we say it. If we don't like it, we say it. If somebody's doing something and you think it's right, you say it. And if we were like this to one another, everybody would know where they stand.
I know.
Everybody would know where they stand. And when you say it, you don't say it with bitterness. You say it because it's the truth. And when you take that as being the truth, then people say, oh, I'm sorry. Or, oh, you don't like that. Or maybe they think it's right. Then they'll go off somewhere else because they know they won't do it to you. You don't get bullied. You speak the truth.
Right.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, Barb, it's wonderful. We can carry on this conversation. But now today, you've gone through this journey. You've done everything. And I know before we were talking, I know you are writing a book, and like me, I'm things in the pipe work, but it hasn't yet. How can people connect with you? What are you doing? Are you doing retreats? Come on, tell us, how can we connect with you?
Okay, so since you're listening to a podcast, it's pretty easy to hop on over to my podcast. It's called Fragmented to Whole: Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery. I started it in March of 2019, so we're going on 8 years. I have 340-ish episodes as of this moment, and they're 10 to 20-minute episodes with what I learned in recovery, because I had been in therapy for 37 years before recovery and done all the personal development things. And I learned so much in recovery, and I wanted to get it out into the world. I do boundaries coaching. I focus on professional women who are overwhelmed to help them create internal safety so that they can set limits with other people without guilt and shame, and stop focusing so much on other people. I also have mini courses and courses. My flagship program is called Unshakable You, the Fragmented to Whole method. And the process I take people through is called the Internal Safety Restoration method. This is something that I came up with for, on my own, but I also do shorter term coaching. So if someone's interested in having a call with me because they think they might want to coach, they can go to barbchat.net and sign up for a call with me. Otherwise, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I used to be on other platforms, but I'm not anymore, though there's still content there. Uh-oh. There you are.
Yes, sorry. Do you know something? I was writing and I shook something.
Oh no.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. But you're there. So hopefully it's continued. Please continue.
Okay. So I am on LinkedIn at Barb Nangle. That's N like neighbor, Angle. And then I have a ton of free and paid content on my website, higherpowercc.com. That stands for coaching and consulting. So I have stuff about romantic boundaries, family boundaries, personal boundaries, and workplace boundaries. And again, I have lots of free content and lots of paid content. I always saw myself as a powerful woman of agency and didn't know that I was a people pleaser, peacekeeper, rescuer, overgiver, and all that kind of stuff. And so I do want to say one last thing, and that is that just because you develop healthy boundaries doesn't mean that you no longer help people. I actually donate more hours per week in community service than I ever did before recovery, but I do it strategically rather than at the drop of a hat. I do it by choice rather than by sense of compulsion or obligation. And I do it after filling my cup first. So I pour from the overflow, not from an empty cup. And the only way that you can have an overflow is if you fill your cup first. So it's not selfish to take care of yourself.
Oh, in fact, if you don't take, I mean, even on an aircraft, they say to
Right.
to the aircraft, and the masks come down. Put your mask on first before you put anybody else's.
Right.
Sort yourself off first. So, and it's the same thing I say. if you cannot love yourself, how can you love others?
Right. Well, you can love others, but it's not as deep and as profound because you
Exactly.
eventually get burnt out and resentful because you have nothing left
This is
because
it.
it's all going in the outward direction. Yeah.
This is it. So
Yeah.
it's sorting yourself out first, strengthening yourself, and then
Mhm.
it flows. It
Yes,
flows. And
absolutely.
again, there are boundaries, and you're also teaching people that
Mhm.
I have to be here. You're there.
Mhm.
I can only
Mhm.
give so much, and then
Yeah.
you teach them to do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Having
it's
that.
really, there's a lot of myths about what boundaries are, and it's really about your identity. Like, where do I end and other people begin? What's okay with me and not okay with me? And many people are like, I don't know. And I'm like, that's what boundary work is starting to discern what is okay with me, what
Yeah,
is not okay with me, what do I want, like, need, and prefer. Where do I end and other people begin? That's the process of building boundaries, is figuring that stuff out. And then, of course, sharing it with other people in whatever level of detail makes sense for that relationship.
wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful, Barbara. As I said, we can go on more because you do
Really?
so many
Yeah.
actions. But everybody, Barbara has given her details of how to connect. I know I disappeared for a while. I hope it recorded. Just before we go, Barbara, just remind us the websites we can connect with you.
Sure.
Please.
So you can go to fragmentedtowhole.com to find my podcast if you can't find it on your podcast outlet, which you should. Or you can go to higherpowercc.com for all of my content. And if you think that you would like to have a call with me to talk about the possibility of coaching, go to barbchat.net.
Wonderful. So you've all got that, and I know you've got a lot of things. And always I say to my guests, before I say goodbye, Barbara, can you leave us with a nugget or two of advice for those who are listening, because they're
Mhm.
probably going through some things? What would you advise?
Yeah, I mean, I think because most of the time when I'm on a podcast, it's as a boundaries coach, and I often leave with the same advice, and that is to keep the focus on yourself. And I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean focus internally. So ask yourself, what do I want or need in this situation? I never did that. Am I minding my own business? I was constantly foisting my help on people and unsolicited advice. What could I do differently? If I don't like the way an interaction keeps happening or dynamics keep happening in my life, what could I do differently? And then lastly, the fourth way I talk about keeping the focus on yourself is take really good care of yourself. It starts with your body, and then, of course, your mind and your spirit. But refuel your tank every single day. So keep the focus on yourself, focus internally, because that's what you can control. Stop trying to control people, places, and things, because you can't.
Well done. You can't. The only person you can control is yourself. We can take a horse to the water, but we can't force it to drink.
Right.
And
Yes.
we can give that advice, but it's not by force. As they need to take it willingly. So to all those who have listened today, thank you for joining us. Barb Nangle in Connecticut, thank you so much. Keep warm, because I know the weather is not so good there. And to everybody, thank you, and bye for now.
Thanks,
Bye,
Nancy.
everybody.